Hello everyone, it's good to see a few familiar faces here. I would like to start with two quotes before I pose the first question. The one is, ships are the nearest things to dreams that hands have ever made. And the other one is, cruising has two pleasures. One is to go out in wider waters from a sheltered space. The other is to go into a sheltered space from wider waters. So it's no doubt that the cruise industry is increasing in popularity and that we have increasingly more people deciding to take their holiday on a cruise ship. The question becomes, how do we expect this to continue in the future? More specifically, how do you foresee, this question goes to our panelists, how do you foresee the development of passenger numbers and what do you see as the major future trends in those source markets?
Question?
To whoever wants to answer, or I can
start?
I can give it to you, yes.
So future trends, we partially talked about it. We have been debating in the past about the potential of the European market as a source market, which is of course important. And the expectations are for the European market to reach the same level of penetration as the US, the North American market. Of course, there may be some slowdown caused by Southern Europe's current problems, but the trend is there. And then what is even more important for Europe is Europe as a destination, as I said before, because that is an import. Every foreign passenger that comes to Europe is an export of a European product. So that is a huge potential. The change in legislation in visa will allow Chinese and other nations that today have a problem obtaining in a short-term time a visa to have a visa and come and visit Europe. That's a huge potential. 0.1 is 3.5 million people. So, and we have 5.5 million visiting Europe. So it's good for me, for my level, my cruise industry, for my high luxury cruise. I imagine for TUI, MSC, AIDA.
Well, that's from the perspective of the incoming tourists in Europe.
We said both.
Both.
Economies are growing. Penetration in Europe is 1% or slightly more. In the North America, it's 3.5%. We're going there. Germany clearly is going there. And then there's the huge potential of inbound, which is even more important. And Europe is the destination where everybody wants to go, if they can.
Any recommendations how, or any tips or any comments and ideas how European cruise companies could benefit the most from this positive development? And that goes again, the question to everyone.
Yes. If I may, since we're not following protocol, I would like to take this opportunity, first of all, thank Manfredi and the Executive Committee of CLIA for nominating me and with that establishing the CLIA Germany, the CLIA Deutschland, because I think was about time for all stakeholders to unify in order to speak with a common voice, with one unified voice, to relay this one message about our great industry, about the growth perspectives, and about the really fantastic products that we have. So this is a great step forward, and this will definitely enable us to, with all our travel industry partners together, to grow this fantastic industry. On the growth perspective, I mean, it's pretty obvious what happened in the last few years here in Germany. Germany has grown by 2 digits year after year, and the exact numbers from last year we will hear tomorrow from our colleague Richard. Well, is there an end to it? I don't know. It's probably within our heads. There could be a lot more growth, but if you look east, I mean, Germany is becoming more and more popular and it's getting more and more crowded. If you look east to Eastern Europe, Poland has an emerging middle class, Russia, very cash rich. If you look further east, India, booming, and then of course China. I mean, who doesn't want to be in China? So from an AIDA perspective, I would of course advise everyone to look east.
I think if I just chime in from a Norwegian perspective and as an American cruise brand, We have ships obviously in the European waters, and we see that as a combination of destination and source market. So we're very pleased that the German market for us is it's a core source market for our European ships. And I think I echo the comments of everybody that's spoken so far, in that we see continued growth, and I think we see that growth very much closer to home still within the German-speaking markets and all of Europe. And I think what's happening in Southern Europe will be a hiccup, and business will bounce back on there, I hope sooner rather than later. But I think I was in London last night talking to the CLIA UK, and the market there looks like it's pretty much flat. But what I found was quite interesting was that 1 in 8 package holidays are a cruise holiday. So why can't that be 1 in 5? And I think the German market is definitely building quickly now in respect of that. So I think echo Michael's comments as well, is that Eastern Asia is definitely growing for us as a North American cruise brand, much more as a source market rather than as a destination at the moment. And then we look into South America and the Latin American countries, and we see continued growth coming from those regions as well. As you said, the middle classes of somewhere like Brazil is growing very similar to that of India. So I think the future is really, really bright in terms of your opening comment. And I think Europe is definitely another 5 million plus to come.
We at MSC also see a tremendous potential left for a lot of source markets, and of course also for the German market. One figure which I think has not yet been mentioned is that compared to the US, overall still less than 2% of the overall German population went on a cruise, compared to more than 3% in North America. So just looking at this number, that shows that there is a big potential left for cruising. Also, before I forget it, I also would like to thank Manfredi and CLIA for this initiative to launch CLIA Germany, and I also feel very honored to be the Vice Chairman of CLIA Germany.
Yes, the gentlemen have everything said. What is to say? So what I can add is perhaps a question that is for me always interesting, since I'm on the panels, and that means since 15 years, and the question is always the same: when will the growth will end? Nobody knows. When we had in Germany 250,000 passengers, and the first ship was introduced with 1,100 lower berths, then all the experts said that's 500 too much. So if you look today on that small ship, it has a character of a lifeboat. So meanwhile we're speaking about more than 1.5 million German cruise passengers. So I think sometimes the question is coming from a corner where nobody really understands which huge impact the cruise business meanwhile has in Germany by deciding, for example, the next vacancies, the next holidays. So more than 12% of the total revenue which is made by packaged tourism holidays is now already made by the cruise business. So that it's not anymore a niche market, it's an industry about we discuss here. And I think we should be happy that we have these growth, that we should be happy that we have this industry, and through the industry the growth, because we employ thousands of people via that industry. And I think the future should show how can we support the further growth of the industry by rules, by legals and things like that. That's for me the much more interesting question, independent that we every day have to think about what can our guests interest, and what makes cruising so attractive, and what is the generation thinking in 10 years that this kind of holiday will stay attractive.
Of the odd one out here on this panel, I'm not related in the cruising business at all. So let me just for 1 second take the point of view of the destination regions. What's in it for them? I mean, in terms of employment, of taxes, of spending. Most passengers sleep on their ships, they eat on their ships. So when a ship enters destination, what's in it for the town? What's in it for the region? How do they get a part of the big cake that you've been talking about?
We do get the part of the big cake or the destination?
The region, the destination region.
It's a little bit different on the product side because of what is already in the price and what not. But what we can say is depends on the destination. A cruise passenger spends per port, direct and indirectly, between 100 and 180 euros when he entered the destination. We forget sometimes the industry behind. Taxi drivers, bus transfers, shore excursions, infrastructures of ports. Ports, they have to be built for that. Infrastructure, they have to be built for that. These industry around our industry employs people, etc., etc. So it's not only that guests stay on the board and therefore they don't need the hotel on the destination, but often enough they bring much more money into the destination than someone who stays 7 days in the hotel in the destination.
It has been calculated, I think, for the city of Venice, that 1 out of every 5 shops would close if cruise ships would not go anymore. And that's not an industry, but it's from the city, from the constituencies of Venice city. So that applies pretty much around, It depends how many people we give. The more we give, we can produce this kind of level. 20%, 1 out of 5 shops works out of cruise industry passengers.
Hamburg, the Chamber of Commerce of the city of Hamburg has commissioned a study for the year 2010, I believe, and with the outcome that the economic impact just for Hamburg of cruise business was more than 200 million euros per annum. That was 2 years ago. In the meanwhile, cruising has grown by 2 digits year over year. And we did a study amongst TUI Cruises and AIDA Cruises passengers about the pre and post, and the outcome was that the average length of stay pre or post by a cruise passenger is longer than a regular visitor of the city of Hamburg, and the spending is higher than a regular visitor. So the chances for the destinations are huge. I mean, if a cruise passenger likes it somewhere, he's very likely to come back if he feels comfortable there and if he likes it. And in fact, most or many regions, many ports, they can't keep up with the growth. Case in point, Hamburg again.
Key question regarding ports, and a question that a lot of destinations planners have is, should they try and focus their development strategy in terms of becoming a home port or in terms of becoming a transit port? What do you think should be the key factors guiding this decision for ports? What advice would you give them?
I think that if you mean the ports where you embark and disembark,
Exactly.
only few have the options, the one that have international airports. It's the airport that guides it, and not only the airport, the airlines flying in. So that's a connectivity. So that's why you have Barcelona, Civitavecchia, Athens, Istanbul, which are really the pillars of the cruise industry in the Mediterranean. If you go in the north, it's Amsterdam, which is extremely well connected, Hamburg, Stockholm, Copenhagen. Copenhagen has fantastic connections.
But that means that would logically mean that for transit ports, we only have, let's say, the spending that comes from mainly excursions, if I'm not correct, and accommodation is only in the transit, or mostly in the turnaround ports. So I'm wondering whether the infrastructure investments required to develop a cruise destination measure up to the money that comes in through excursions and maybe buying souvenirs or some transport at the destination.
What infrastructure? I mean, cruise ships go in ports which are there. They give a better and more profitable use to the ports. Cruise lines have always been willing to participate in project financing to develop the terminals if necessary and if allowed, because they are profitable centers of business. A cruise terminal is a profit center, it's not a cost. Go and look at everywhere it's allowed. I mean, in the Caribbean where the cruise lines are allowed to build their own cruise terminals, they build it and they're very profitable.
Okay, so what we're saying is that if there's a cruise terminal already there, then it does pay off.
If you build a cruise terminal, it pays off through the services that it gives. It depends how many cruise passengers will pass through it. But if it is a destination where you have a number of passengers passing, the cruise terminal will pay off. But most of European ports do not have big terminals.
I think it's an opportunity for a lot of these secondary ports, because if you look at somewhere like Europe, which is very diverse and very rich in its culture, and you alluded to the fact that there's a lot of people coming to the destination from all these different source markets around the world, then surely growing these secondary ports is an opportunity for some of these people in terms of investing in infrastructure and talking to the cruise lines and the cruise industry about helping them grow. Because at some stage there is going to be, in my view, a lot of capacity that's going to be in these European ports, that there's some of these marquee ports, that there's going to be an opportunity for these secondary ones to continue to grow. And we all look for new exciting destinations to offer our cruise passengers. So I think the opportunity is a huge opportunity for these secondary ports.
Right, back on board, I'd say. What do you see as the major trends? What does the future bring in cruising as, cruising as a product? So what do you foresee as the trends in shipbuilding, in itinerary, in cruise packaging? What's coming up next? Whoever wants to answer, whoever has an answer ready.
We can. Gentlemen, I start. I hope you still have some trends after that as well. So, but now what I want to say, what we see, first of all, it's a trend to decide to go on a cruise, meanwhile, much more than 10 years ago. So it's trendy to discuss, do we go 2 weeks to Spain on a cruise ship? So the democratizing of the cruise industry in general is already a trend, and it's a long-term trend, meanwhile, which the sustainability. Second point is what we as TUI Cruises, I cannot speak for the colleagues, but what we see is that the requirements of the cruise guests are more and more, in one hand, to have the variety and diversity of the culinary programs, of the food and beverages, of entertainment, but they also want to go back to feel the ocean as well and to read a book on the balcony. This is one of the reasons why more and more ships, new ships, have a high share of balconies, for example, as well. And we see that we have to be prepared for families, we have to be prepared for younger people, also with our kind of entertainment and education. And we see that more and more people combine the cruise with pre and post programs. So I think there are so many things people have learned from land-based holidays, and we combine it with the fascination of the sea. Mm-hmm. And this keeps the brand and the trend as it is already.
You mean things like combining it with sportive activities like cruising and biking or things like that?
Yeah, sport activities. So I think, 15 years ago, everybody thought, or 20 years ago, thought that sport on board of a ship is 5 o'clock tea, shuffleboard and darts. So and darts was already something extreme sport. So, but meanwhile, when you look on that, what will be offered on a ship and in which professionality it will be offered, so that has changed completely.
When you talk about cruising, you talk about a variety of.
Absolutely.
You go from the Oasis of the Seas, which is about 5,000 passengers. It's a destination in itself.
And when
independently where you go, I mean, it's so much. If you've ever been on board of it, you have Central Park in the center with
and the carousel from the Central Park, and the carousel from the Central Park as well. And we see theme cruises. For my company, I can say that, and others are doing that. So we will start out of Hamburg in 5th of May with the first metal cruise in Germany. 2,000 heavy metal freaks are on board with 20 bands.
It's gotten quite famous.
Yes, we have done that after the dry dock. I don't know whether that was the right decision, but we are really happy because we have learned that we can get new passengers after the theme cruises. We have learned it from different theme cruises to bring via a theme new people, new interested people on board. And if it's a heavy metal, we do it. So ship was full after 1 week, more or less. So, and nobody knew before that these freaks are going on a cruise ship, but they do it. And I will be there as well.
They like to.
Talking about your guests.
Yeah, no. Freaks. It's in that music freaks. In that case, it's a very positive way. I also will join that cruise. I have bought already a leather jacket and a cap and things like that. And I have trained this issue as well. So it's great. I like it. I like it because we can fascinate people. They never thought that they want to go on a ship. And via this theme, we bring new people also to the industry. And a lot of other cruise lines have done that long before we have started with that. So and that keeps the business young.
Well, we just, well, good luck, because we just had KISS come off our cruise ship.
Great.
So,
a good friend of mine, a German journalist, he's one of your repeater.
Yeah, so the theme cruises is definitely an area. And I think in terms of picking up your point on people connecting with the ocean, I mean, we're delighted. We're building, obviously, a very big ship, 4,000 passenger ship in Papenburg, and it's floated out last week, and on that ship it's all about product differentiation and innovation, and on that ship we've opened it up very much on the inside, so we're connecting the people with the water, so we have al fresco dining and dining inside and lots of different choices. So product differentiation and innovation, and I think certainly some of the trends that you see in terms of differentiating your product to appeal to the different markets. And I think the other point I'd make is that we see more and more customers now talking about lifestyle, and to your point on a theme cruise, you know, there are lifestyles where there's a big solo market of customers that are traveling on their own, and so you need to appeal to those type of lifestyles. I think we're all spending a lot of time, certainly in the more of the contemporary brands and the big brands, focusing our efforts on attracting new to cruise and the family market, and so there's a lot of innovation that goes on in our industry and on our cruise ships to support that.
I think the key word is variety. It's all about variety, innovation, and I mean the fact that the cruise market is growing, obviously also as a consequence produces more and more brands. So branding also becomes more and more important, I think, and MSC is an international company with Mediterranean roots, and what we try to do in addition to offering variety is to mix different cultures within the same umbrella of product. And also this, I think, is a trend to participate in the growth of the cruise market, because it allows a cruise line to get access to different markets and still offering a consistent theme for the overall brand and the product.
Well, if you look at the demographic changes in Europe, in particular in Germany, I think it's not that difficult to read and see where the trends are going. It's a bit more towards relaxation and less activity. It's a bit more towards service. It's of course it is variety and diversification, but you have to be careful that you're not trying to be everything to everybody. So in a way, you should concentrate on either a source market or either a price point where you're selling at, and diversify in that respect. So of course it's much better to be able to build new ships and tailor make them for the specific market you're in, or a specific target group you're actually targeting. And from our experience with refurbishing older tonnage, for instance, that hasn't worked because a guest requires a certain product. Yes, diversification plays a big role, and yes, exploring the world in a safe environment, coming home every day, being safe, being secure, that makes a big difference. But what we haven't been good at, maybe in Germany better than in other markets, is that we have a fantastic price-value proposition that we haven't been able to sell in a way that it should have been done. So in other words, what you're getting for in a cruise is by far more than for a comparable, well, if I say comparable, there is no real comparable product shoreside, but if you try to put that together all in a few days or in 1 week, the cost of it would be by far higher. So there's certain elements. There's demographic change, there is diversification, there is variety of choice, etc. But I think one needs to be more specific. Being everything to everybody, that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, these gentlemen operate all in the contemporary markets, and so they have repeating itineraries. It's a product which is quite different from other cruise lines, such as Silversea Cruises. Silversea Cruises features 450 different port destinations. So really, you can stay on board for 3 months, changing port every day. So it's a big variety of product. On board of larger ships, you have a lot of entertainment opportunities. On the luxury ships, you have a more, how can I say, intimate atmosphere. It's more about interacting between the people. It's about visiting new ports. It's about, of course, everywhere it's dining options, because that's something that all cruise lines offer at a very good level. But it's very different. Imagine being on a 130 passenger ship in the Arctic, or being on a 5,000 ship in the Caribbean. It's a totally different experience. And that's cruising. That's the beauty of the world of cruising.
Yeah. As mentioned before, cruise is not a niche anymore. Cruise tourism is not a niche. It's becoming increasingly one of the mainstream tourism areas. And with this growth and development, we also have increased competition. In addition to that, we have experienced over the last years increasing fuel costs. My question is the big question of profitability. If we look at the public statements of Carnival and Royal Caribbean available for everyone, we will see that over the last 10 years, the profit margins have been slightly reduced. So we can at least say there's not a tendency of profit margin growth there. So, and I also read yesterday your interview, Richard, where you're saying, well, we should be careful about portraying the cruise as too much of a bargain, if I understood your comment correctly. What are your comments on this, on the issue of profitability and pricing?
I agree that prices are too low.
Yes, I think anybody would disagree.
And certain costs are too high. But so of course it's our job to pass the message and to explain to the people what an incredible opportunity the cruise product is, and having the market accept some higher fares. Part of the cost will depend from the global economy. What is going to be the cost of energy in the future depends from many things. I'm optimistic, but about that specific issue.
So can we expect an increase in the average cruise price over the next 5 years?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You know that I have a problem with this question as well, because I don't know from where you have this all this information that the margin became lower in the past. I honestly must say I cannot sign that, not for our company. And when I know a little bit more than you because of the last study from 2012. We will publish tomorrow, so and therefore also cannot really follow that, and when we look into especially for the German market, into the price increase or price stability, by knowing that more and more cruises will will start from the house store at least, and other transport costs will reduce by that. So if I look then into the figure, I cannot really follow that. On the other hand, you must see that ships became bigger and bigger. The scale of economy is completely different than 20 years ago. So the opportunity to reduce the price I have today is not comparable to the price they have to take 20 years ago when they had only a 300 lower berth ship. So, end of the day, I think you're absolutely right. One of the cost driver is fuel. We have to look on that, and therefore all cruise lines are working on fuel efficiencies and cruise efficiencies in energy and fuel consumption. That is one of the big points, and also the crewing itself. Not only the people you have, also the people you have to have in the future by growing in the industry, qualified crew. This is one of the challenges, but I don't see that as a risk.
I think from I agree with that in terms of at Norwegian we've experienced 18 consecutive quarters of growth year over year, record-breaking EBITDA numbers, good margins. I don't think we get a fair share. I don't think we get a fair price for our product, but I think everybody agrees with that on the panel. So I think there is an effort to move that up. The economies of scales become different, but I think it's a very profitable business to be in, and I think there's great opportunities to take it further forward. It comes back, I think Michael mentioned it, about the value proposition, and we have a great value proposition in the cruise industry, more so than I think any other land-based vacation. So.
Just one thought to be added. I mean, profit is the difference between revenues and costs. So one leverage you usually have is efficiencies. And there are a lot of ways to increase efficiencies within our industry, also in terms of a closer cooperation with ports, for example, so that the infrastructure is even closer linked to the ship itself. And then all of us probably need to continue to do a better job in explaining what the value proposition of our products are. And thirdly, we need to continue to think about ways how to offer additional services aboard or after or before the cruise, so that we think of additional ways how to make money in addition to selling the cruise ticket. And that is highly linked to innovations and, again, variety.
It might be a bit of a touchy subject, but my next point links closely to that, and that's the labor cost and working conditions. That's been kind of in the focus of public scrutiny recently. How do you deal with that, and what's done about that challenge?
Labor conditions are very well regulated. We cannot touch a port without being subject to specific international regulations. We have regulations for what concerns configuration of the ships. We have regulation for what concerns the employment contracts, the working hours. So everything is very well regulated. Actually, we're a very highly regulated industry. And we do everything we can to improve because we want to attract good staff. And you attract good staff if you can offer them a good working environment. Is that well communicated? I don't know. Well, apparently yes, because we have a lot of people want to work for us. So we certainly have a queue of people wanting to work on the cruise ships and not the contrary.
I mean, in the past, working on a cruise ship used to be all about money, making as much money as possible and taking as much time off as possible after you work on board and then spending everything again and going back to work. So this has definitely changed. We are, as we grow, we are more and more in competition with other service industries, with other tourism industries. Labor markets, particularly in Europe, are getting tighter and tighter. So obviously, we have to do more than just comply with rules and regulations. And we do applaud that MLC 2006 has finally been ratified, but it was also about time. But I mean, this is the standard that the law requires. But in order to be an attractive employer, you need to go beyond that. And there's, every one of us, I think, has several things that we do in order to position ourselves and be able to get the best talent. So there's a number of things, but as in other areas, environmental areas, for instance, compliance is not enough anymore today. We need to do more than that.
Happy crew, happy guests. So it's in our self-interest that we make sure that our crew feels well and comfortable, because we are in the service industry and we need to provide good service.
since we are talking about career opportunities, I think a number of people that I see here, I can recognize a lot of my students and other students that I have come to know over the years. I think one very interesting question for them is, what are the career opportunities in your industry and what advice would you give them? To the young people wanting...
You want to spend an hour here? It's infinite. I mean, as somebody told me, a cruise line is 10 jobs simultaneously. You go from operating a vessel to a tour operator, to restaurant, entertainment, high tech, you name it, you have everything on a cruise ship. Not to mention at the offices. You have marketing, we do...
I think as an industry, we cover most of the disciplines that you would find in any large industry, more so, and I think more diverse. And you take it the next stage in terms of the total travel industry. I mean, we're a relatively small part of it in overall, but a growing part of it, and the fastest growing part of the travel industry. But from my own personal experience, I started as a travel agent, selling cruises and holidays on the counter, to the lowly position that I find myself in now. But through a diversity of everything from the airlines to the cruise lines, retail, tour operating, and within the cruise line and within Norwegian, I've done multiple disciplines as well. So it's a great industry, and if students are out there thinking of joining the cruise industry, then please consider it. It's good. We need more people. We need good people.
The next touchy subject, it's my pleasure to communicate them to you. The Concordia accident is one that brought quite a lot of bad press, as well as the Carnival Triumph accident. What is done in respect of security, safety regulations? Have these improved? Can you give good news to the people here in the room?
Well, I mean, we have the day... Who's the boss? Of course, 2012 has been a special year, no? Because it started with the Costa Concordia, and in my capacity as chairman of the European Cruise Council, we were immediately on top of the issue. Because the Cruise Council is the association which regulates, supports the cruise industry in Europe. So, I mean, it was being a fantastic cooperation amongst the cruise lines that are fierce competitors on the market and have become the strongest supporters one of the other. First of all, not attacking each other based on these kind of situations, but working together to bring knowledge and best practices to improve the safety standards on the industry. Immediately there's been a workforce put in action, directly supervised by the CEOs of the company, which has introduced a number of measures, and it's an ongoing review. It's an ongoing review where we're introducing always new standards of safety and procedures and so on and so forth. And that happens from now, it's happening, whatever happens to cruise industry, there is immediately an effort jointly by the cruise industry to self-regulate itself, self-improve itself. We are ahead of the curve. We go to IMO and we say, this is what we're doing, and they support us. We're telling them what we're doing, introducing anticipated drills. The problem of the Costa Concordia happened because the drill legislation imposed a drill within 24 hours. We do it before sailing. And so on, you name it, whatever. Of course, you know, life is full of uncertainties, not only a cruise ship. 1 month later than the Costa Concordia accident, a bus in Switzerland, because of the bus driver putting a video, went out of the road and 22 children out of 25 got killed. This is, unfortunately, it's life. We don't live in a crystal box. But our duty, both from an ethical point of view and from a commercial point of view, is to be ahead of the game at driving the highest safety standards in the industry.
Good. The question is now whether we should proceed with the questions or allow some time for the public to raise questions. You're aware you can send your questions per smartphone, and I think we are already 5 minutes overdue of our time. So I think I propose that we stop asking questions and we give the words to every single one of you, to our panelists.
Are there any questions? Please raise up your hand and I will come to you with a microphone. You can ask the questions. Maybe I should break the ice. Where do you see the challenges for the future? The challenges in cruising? Is it to be the biggest part of this area, to have the biggest ship?
The challenges or the opportunities?
Both.
The challenges are, of course, the costs related to certain improvements that the industry has to deliver. Namely, for example, environmental issues. Going from sulfur content of the fuel that we burn to amount of energy consumption. These are challenges because, of course, the public opinion and politics expect that we do all that is possible to reduce the impact. And so we have to do that. And there are a lot of positive things. Norwegian Cruise Line is experimenting in the United States of America based on agreement with the US government, new technology to reduce sulfur content. It's a typical case in which government and industry can cooperate very well. Norwegian has committed to make substantial investments in new technology, and the government is giving them an opportunity to do this. You have areas of improvement which are quite important. For example, air conditioning. You now have new systems to regulate air conditioning, which can reduce energy consumption related to air conditioning by 20, 30, 40%. And it's not a small amount of money which is saved on the cruise line. That means a lot of energy being saved. So that is a challenge we have and which we are all working on very, very. And I must say that German cruise lines are ahead of the game on this because of the sensitivity that Germany has on environmental issues. So AIDA, for example, that I know more specifically, has been always a benchmark in standards of environmental standards. Opportunities are, of course, size of ships. A lot of economies of scale for them.
Is it difficult for you to find a new route for the passengers, new areas to make a new cruise route for them? Because there are so many ships all around the world at the same time. And I know if you are in Norway, you see 3 big ships beside your ship, and there's no other space for other ships. But they are building more ships all the time. Is there a challenge in the future to find areas where you can go with your ship?
Well, the world is big, but
the world is big. That's true.
That means more opportunities for other places. You don't want to be the 10th in line at Santorini Island. You will choose another island and promote it, because then you want the people to want to go there. Santorini self-promotes itself. Everybody wants to go to Santorini, but there is a big queue. They don't build another shuttle, how you call it, to go up and down. You have to go on the donkeys. But, so Santorini is a fantastic destination, but pretty jammed. So, and we need to promote other places also. And Greece needs to put a second teleferica, we call it.
Give us money, we'll do anything.
We will.
There's a question in the back.
Yes.
My name is Daniel, and I want to know which kind of benefits you can offer to young students like me, working on a cruise ship and not studying or going abroad or something else.
Well, I would say it depends on your grades.
It's the right answer. Yeah.
Are you a student of his? We'll see. Go on our website. We are hiring 1,000 new people every year. We have more than 200 different professions to offer. We have all kinds of programs, of trainings, of assessments, there's a massive variety. Just go and find out.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Alfredo Archilla. I represent the port of Mayagüez in Mayagüez, Puerto Rico, Southern Caribbean. The question for you guys is, I've heard you talked about the growth and the expected growth in Europe on this business. Is there any integration between the growth here and the Caribbean? Within that growth, are you including any numbers regarding traveling people from Europe into the Caribbean? Or are this just the numbers of the growth regarding activity in Europe?
Well, I think that the growth of the European market is two ways, as a destination and as a sourcing. Of course, in the winter season, the sourcing will go in a meaningful way also to the Caribbean. It goes to the Gulf countries. There has been a moment, better times, when it went to Southern Mediterranean and Caribbean, of course.
And I think just to add, and building on that comment, is that in some of these markets, the local, the government taxation on airfares is becoming an issue as well in terms of long-haul travel. So just from my own experience and understanding what's going on in some of the bigger European markets, not necessarily Germany, but there are lots of pressures on taxes from governments, which really are impacting Caribbean and long-haul travel.
So let's have the last
So if you can
question.
lobby them, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. The last question.
Last question, please.
Hi, I'm Christine. I've got a question. There is nowadays cars which drive with hybrid engines, and is there any chance that ships will have something like a hybrid or like a more ecological engine to reduce the pollution?
Certainly. There is one operator which has asked Fincantieri to study a gas fueled vessel, which is Viking Cruises.
It's a craze. It's a new. It's a new build which was inaugurated 4 weeks ago. This is a completely Viking Cruise. It's a completely gas-driven ship. So that it's one of the future technologies
which has been studied.
Yeah.
There's not anyone yet, I think. It's also a question of supply of fuel at the ports.
As a matter of fact, Manfredi, we have ordered 2 vessels in 2015 and 2016. They will have dual fuel engines, LNG and
the
NGO.
double fuel.
Double fuel.
Those are the Japanese ships. Because Japanese offer that technology.
Exactly. Exactly, the German engines. Yeah.
Well, I am afraid I have to close the session because we've run out of time. Thank you ever so much for your insights and the interesting discussion that we have. To try and summarize it all up, it seems that the potential is still there for the cruise sector. There are challenges to be expected. It's come to the mainstream, and the key word that seems to me here that seems to come out of all this, it's innovation is the key driver to the continued success of the industry. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.